Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It's FBC Radio Live. It's Friday, June 30th. It's the last day of June. John, unfortunately, we were not on the air yesterday. Therefore, we missed celebrating June 29th. And, well, if you're as limited capacity as you and I are, and most of our brain is made up of useless Seinfeld knowledge, then you'd understand that reference. But June 29th, the day that Jerry Seinfeld vomits. It seems to be a tradition.
That's right. And that's, what was it, about a 15-year period?
It's something like that, 7 years.
Yeah. It's been a long period of time, which is pretty impressive.
But
I don't want to jinx myself. I'm pretty much up there myself. I have like a cast iron stomach, although, by tonight I'll probably be puking at some point.
Well, don't forget, though, that unfortunate streak ended, though, when Jerry ate the black and white cookie in the bakery. That was not good.
Yep.
So, no, obviously, we each had some things going on yesterday, so we skipped the day as well. If there's going to be a time to do it, it's now in the sports world, because it's relatively quiet. We have, although tomorrow, John, we have both the NFL, NHL, and NBA with their free agency kicking off. So I'd imagine it's going to be pretty wild tomorrow. I think there's going to be a lot. It's going to be a fun sports day tomorrow after, well, what's been a relatively quiet couple weeks, save for, say, the NHL draft last night, if you're a fan. But right now, it's just baseball, and we're not even into the quote unquote dog days of summer.
No, we're like at the midpoint of the season, right? And Shohei Ohtani's on pace to hit 58 home runs and strike out 260 batters, which to me is just mind blowing. In fact, my favorite stat for Shohei Ohtani, he's on pace to steal 22 bases.
Yeah,
like in addition to all the things he does. So what an amazing athlete! And again, headed for free agency at the end of the year. Start talking 10 years, $550 million. But yeah, you got NBA free agency, NHL free agency. James Harden opts in with Philadelphia, then now is demanding a trade, because that's what you do actually before the trade. So at least you get the contract established, or at least 1 year of the contract established. And I pray that he goes to the LA Clippers to join Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and they retain Russell Westbrook, because that would be the most fascinating team maybe in the history of the NBA.
Look, I'm not I'm actually pretty excited for the Jets to be forced into Hard Knocks. But I don't almost want to just have an NBA team be on Hard Knocks this year, and that would be the Clippers if that were the case. So either way,
why hasn't the NBA done that, right? I mean, because the NHL did it. Remember, they would lead up to the January 1st game, and I found that fascinating. Hard Knocks is generally, pretty good. I mean, I think this year is going to be spectacular. If Aaron Rodgers acts himself, it should be pretty spectacular. The NBA is perfect for this, because they've got more personality than any other sport, and personalities, right? And there's so few guys on the team. It would be, even like Grant Williams with the Celtics would be an interesting guy to follow around.
Well, I don't know. Maybe some like individual teams do it. Like in hockey, I know, like say the Bruins do Behind the B. And it's essentially the same thing, just like, behind the scenes look. But, with Hard Knocks, it's obviously much like a lot of things in the NFL. They're they share a lot. Obviously, I mean, they're all professional sports, so they all share the same relative foundation on how to run a league, regular seasons, preseasons, yada, 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 all that stuff. But as is the case with all these things, like the NFL draft or the Super Bowl, the NFL's version of these events is just so much more, I'm not saying spectacular in the sense that, just like a little bit in that sense, but mostly in just the pizzazz of it, that type of spectacular. That makes sense. Like the NFL draft is 3 days and 27,000 hours and just endless conversation about the same thing over and over, but people just cannot get enough of it. The Super Bowl, obviously, one big night. All these other leagues have series that last. There's no set date for this championship game. And look, the NFL is just, it's king when it comes to that. So when it comes to training camp coverage, no league has a training camp like the NFL. I mean, maybe you can argue baseball and spring training because that's such a big thing, or it used to be, but I don't think people want more baseball, John. Okay, like I think we have enough as it is, and I'm not saying this to knock it. Even like hardcore baseball fans, I don't think they're pushing for a 200 game season. You know what I'm saying? So even as popular as spring training is, just nothing touches NFL training camp. So I don't know if you can give a basketball training camp version of it, but you could certainly, and I started to say surely, and I went to certainly if you didn't notice that. That's why there was a very prolonged shh in there when I was really trying to say certainly. But you can certainly do one season long with with a team like the Clippers if James Harden joins and Westbrook stays.
So you're confusing Leslie Nielsen and Curly Howard,
certainly.
right? So yeah, like
certainly.
Shirley, you must be kidding.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding, and please don't call me Shirley. The thing about football, which is amazing, is you're talking about like people fighting for roster spots. There's non-guaranteed contracts, so you'll have two cornerbacks fighting for the fourth or fifth cornerback spot. That can be interesting, right? Or you've got the assistant coaches that are on top of the players. It's very hot. It's intense. Basketball, you go into camp, you pretty much have your roster set. Like no one's going to lose their job. If they do, their contract's guaranteed, and they'll go play in the G League or whatever the mechanism is. Yeah, so that was what makes football so incredible. And what's going to be interesting is if the Patriots don't make the playoffs this year and Bill Belichick is coaching in 2024, they'll be eligible for Hard Knocks. They've never appeared on Hard Knocks, and neither has Aaron Rodgers, because Green Bay's always a playoff team for the most part, right? They don't change coaches all that often. So, yeah, this is going to be interesting this year and maybe next year if it's the Patriots. But, yeah, football's made for this because, again, there's that intensity within the team because people are fighting for jobs. And then we know what the relationship can be with the starting quarterback and the backup quarterback. They generally don't like each other because the backup's trying to usurp the starting quarterback. So there's that tension also. And then oftentimes in the NFL, you get the crazy owners involved, whether it's Jerry Jones or Jim Irsay or someone like that.
Well, and look, we talk about it all the time. The NFL can do everything wrong and still make progress. It's just that it's a self-sustaining machine. The sport, the league, everything. I mean, right now you have multiple players in trouble for game. Rodgers, not Aaron Rodgers. Well, maybe Aaron Rodgers, maybe in his hallucinated state, maybe he ultimately betted on his own team, but the cornerback from Indianapolis made a prop bet on his own team. Like I'm all like I think certainly betting on your sport and your league should not be permitted. I mean, it's just you can't allow that if you're a professional. I mean, that's just a sacrifice you have to make. I couldn't care less about them betting on other sports or making prop bets on other sports. But here, John, we do have an instance of a player betting on not only his own league, but his own team. And guess what? This is going to do nothing to the NFL's bottom line. They could uncover a massive a bunch of betting issues already. I mean, we're 3-4 years into sports betting in this league. I don't even know what it was. How long has it been? I can't remember. 2020 to like 2022 just kind of mashed together, and it kind of screws me up a little bit. But so all those things can go wrong, John. And the NFL is not going to worry. I mean, you have a betting scandal in the NHL, and you could really hurt that league. You know what I mean? So the NFL could do whatever it wants to whoever it wants, and probably ultimately have better ratings because of it.
Yeah, I mean, the NHL, players become bookmakers. Rick Pocket or Wayne Gretzky's wife Janet Jones, I guess, had a massive gambling problem. The only thing that could hurt the NFL is if a major star was involved with fixing. Like, that's where the issue would become, right? Because now the whole idea of football is we sit down on Sunday and we don't know who's going to win. That's why it's great drama. That's why the ratings are so great. It's not scripted like wrestling. It's not, actual a Netflix series that is written. So that's what makes that such a fascinating thing. Yeah, look, this sport is so popular, Ian, that the night they released the schedule outdrew NBA and NHL playoff games. So release a schedule, right, to let us know what the opening night was going to be with
which had been essentially leaked leading up to that show.
Yeah,
so
there's not a lot of suspense there. Yeah.
And it's like who's going to kick off the season? Oh my God, I can't wait to find out. Oh, it's the same thing every single year.
Yeah, we know it's going to be the Chiefs, right? Because they're the defending Super Bowl champs, and Detroit seems like a good team to throw out there. So and that outdrew NBA and NHL playoff games that night in May. I mean, that blows my mind. Forget the draft; that blows everybody away. Look at what happens on Christmas Day. Christmas Day used to belong to the NBA, and now NFL will schedule 2 or 3 games. The ratings are through the roof. I think the Packers game last year against the Dolphins outdrew the NBA game at the same time, like 7-1. That's just the way it works. It's a sport that can't really hurt itself. So yeah, I mean, as far as these players, come on. I mean, the rules are there. We all have rules in life, right? So I work for you. If you tell me, John, I don't want you to tweet out political statements, right? I can say, oh, my First Amendment, that means nothing. I work for you. I have to adhere to your policies. When I worked at the Boston Herald, it was the same way. I couldn't just tweet out things. They would, a couple times, told me that I had to delete those tweets because one, I was like breaking a news story and I didn't have a second source. The story was correct, but you needed a second source. But that's just the way the world works. So here are the rules, guys. You're going to make a lot of money playing. Just follow the rules so you don't get thrown out of the league. And especially if you're a fringe player, they're not going to ask you back. I mean, if this is a star player, yeah, you put up with it. And, like Calvin Ridley, right? I mean, he resurfaced. He's in Jacksonville now because he's a really good wide receiver. But some of these other guys that are, fringe players, they're never going to play again. No one's going to bother touching them.
Without rules, there's chaos.
That's right. Thank you, Kramer. Without rules, there are chaos. Anyways, now that we got on the NFL is just basically like, the thing just assimilates and just it just sucks in everyone's soul and basically there's no way to ruin it. It just gets more powerful and powerful the more viewers it gets, and there's nothing we can do to stop it, Sean. Nothing we can do to stop it. The other day, though, a little bit of sad news though in the NFL. Ryan Mallett, former Patriots backup quarterback, obviously spent some time with the Texans and various other teams. Reportedly drowned and passed away, which it's just a sad story no matter what. But obviously, you live in New England still. I'm a Patriots fan. Everyone knows who Ryan Mallett is. It's just an unfortunate, sad story, and something you definitely didn't want to kind of come across your timeline or whatever.
No, I mean, at 35 years old, so he's like younger than you. So he's entering the prime of his life. He was starting to get into coaching. Had a nice career. Look, if you play 7-8 years in the NFL, start some games, that's pretty much an amazing accomplishment, right? So segueing into his second career as a coach, and then you hear this story, and it's so sad. And I think that particular beach or that particular area, they've had some issues the last few weeks with this. So, may he just rest in peace. Far too young, obviously, at 35. Yeah,
and Joel added to your statement that it's known for some rough waters too. So and that's a scary thing because you don't how many times do you just go into the water and not even think about any of that? You know what I mean? It's kind of just kind of out of sight, out of mind, but all of a sudden it's very much present and very, like I said, very sad news coming out of the NFL. So, anyways, we obviously still don't have any DeAndre Hopkins news. He's still mulling decisions. I haven't heard of any other visits since Tennessee and New England. So, is it down to those two teams? I don't know. Is he waiting for a bigger market to materialize? Does he have a date post July 4th in mind? Is he trying to avoid some sort of training camp? I don't know. But we obviously do not have any new news on that. But I don't know. I feel like we're going to find out soon. I know he's probably, I'd say he's pretty competitive. He probably wants to win. So, but again, if you want your money, you're going to wait and you're going to play with whoever. But at the end of the day, I feel like either way, he's going to want to get on the field to at least, I don't know, acclimate himself to a new team. And if you continue to wait, it's only going to make things worse for him. But then again, John, if you get paid, then what the hell's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, with the 17-game schedule, you get the training camp, you do get acclimated with your new quarterback. The offense shouldn't be difficult to learn if he comes to the Patriots, because Billy O'Brien, his former head coach of the Texans, is now the Patriots offensive coordinator. And I think at this point, the league is kind of on vacation, so I don't think there's too many other scheduled visits. Patriots, Tennessee is where he visited. I still think you have to factor in Cleveland because of his connection with Deshaun Watson. So those might be the three leading contenders. And all three of those teams are kind of middle of the road teams. I mean, you would think that if he was truly about winning, that he'd be looking at Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, maybe Dallas, or wherever else, where you look at real strong Super Bowl contenders. But he may just be looking for a last pay date. And also the fact that if he shows well this year, even if it's a one-year deal, he can enter the market again next year, kind of, the way a lot of the receivers do. Odell Beckham Jr. did it with the Rams, right? 2 years ago, got hurt, missed the season, and still got a good deal with Baltimore. So, there's still money to be made by these guys.
Yeah, I'm looking, as, Joel points out, the Patriots have been doing some, lessening their cap commitments the last, however couple days or whatever. And that could certainly be a factor in all this, and perhaps why he's waiting, because, well, like I said, I mean, he went to Tennessee, made his visit, went to New England, had his visit, and then hasn't done anything since. So, maybe you think either he really disliked both visits and there was no one else waiting for him, or perhaps, maybe there's this little, okay, let's, give us a little bit of time, drag this out a little bit, let us free up some cap space. Let's meet in the middle somewhere. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Because look, I think DeAndre Hopkins is a player that the Patriots aren't going to overpay for, but I think they really consider going up. It's one of those players that Bill Belichick likes. And we know sometimes that means, well, maybe they'll go out and sign him to a little bit bigger contract than we all expected. Stephon Gilmore comes to mind. I mean, no one expected him to just, I mean, obviously it was well worth it. Anyone who says otherwise is a fool, and probably works for Sports Hub or WEEI. To me, I feel like this is that type of player. Maybe not. Obviously, he's not Stephon Gilmore of his position at that time. I mean, you can argue that Stephon Gilmore was one of the three best cornerbacks in the league, and certainly was the best during his tenure for the most part, or at least for a few years. And I think obviously DeAndre Hopkins at one point was the best wide receiver in the league. Just not. I don't think he's that level now. I think there's a few receivers that are obviously better than him, but he's really not that far off. And again, you add him to we've talked about it before. You add him to this Patriots offense, and look, they have I mean, again, on paper, John, they have a lot of talent. When Devontae Parker could potentially be your third wide receiver, and you have Kendrick Bourne as another guy. I mean, that's not a bad group. And again, this all goes back to Mac Jones. I mean, it's all on Mac Jones if this is the case. I mean, if you do not win games, it's likely because he did not elevate his game, and that's fine. I mean, that's what you're hoping for. I mean, it's not fine, John, but that's these are the options here, John. If you sign DeAndre Hopkins, either you're kind of stuck in mud because the quarterback isn't the guy you think he is, or like I do feel is going to happen, he's going to elevate his game, and I think collectively the players around him are going to elevate him. We make this we have this discussion all the time about elite quarterbacks, like great quarterbacks, and I think the elite of the elite elevate the players around them. Really good quarterbacks, they're really good. I'm not taking anything away from them, but I think the other players around them elevate their game, like Kirk Cousins. Like Kirk Cousins is a pretty good player. Okay, I'm not going to say he's bad, but and people point out, oh, look at his stats compared to Brady or Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or blah, 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 blah. Well, the difference is I think great players elevate Kirk Cousins, whereas those other guys I mentioned elevate those other players around them. And I think that's the difference between the two. So what is Mac Jones going to be? Well, I don't think he's on that elite tier level, but it doesn't mean the Patriots can't be really good with the really good players around him, as well as him being a pretty good quarterback, I think. And I think we'll learn a lot in year 3.
My biggest concern with the Patriots offense is the offensive line, because Mac Jones is the quarterback, and look, they all need time to throw, whether it's Brady, Rodgers, Mac Jones, or whoever. They need time to throw. So I'm concerned about the offensive line. Yeah, if you add DeAndre Hopkins, the Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne, we'll see, Tyquan Thornton, the second-year wide receiver. We'll see if he grows. You've got Gesicki and Hunter Henry, 2 competent tight ends. So, you've got a lot of pieces there. Maybe they beat you in numbers rather than in like high-level skill sets. This isn't the Raiders with Devontae Adams or Minnesota with Justin Jefferson, but, they have some nice depth at wide receiver, and I think they can do a nice job. The key to me is the offensive line, but at least now you feel better with Billy O'Brien as the offensive coordinator, Adrian Clem as the offensive line coach, that you're going to get coaching this year, and it'll all work that much better. And Mac Jones seems to be in a better headspace than he was a year ago. So, yeah, there's no question about that. And look, when you brought up Stephon Gilmore at the time, I think Gilmore was 27, so he was entering his prime.
Yeah.
Hopkins is 31. He's had some injuries. But look, we know Bill Belichick loves him. You just hear what he had to say to him before last year's game. And the guy still had 64 receptions for over 700 yards and 3 touchdowns in only 9 games. And I believe 4 of those games were with Colt McCoy as the starting quarterback. So that's pretty good. You take that per game average of, 7 receptions, 80 yards. I mean, every game with Colt McCoy as your starting quarterback more than even Kyler Murray. That's pretty good. I think the guy can still play without question.
Well, look, I mean, you go from last year having a collection of pretty good players, not great, pretty good, to now already you've kind of you've added Juju Smith-Schuster to the mix, and I've said I think his yak potential certainly helps this team, who they were just not good last year in yards after the catch. So that's going to add hopefully a better element to this team. Now, again, there's a lot of factors as to why. I mean, the dysfunctional offense certainly did not help. I mean, look at some of the best teams that, when it comes to yards after the catch. Well, yeah, I mean, their quarterbacks there's a good chance their quarterback's pretty good. Then you have, Jimmy Garoppolo, who I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I do. But clearly he benefits from a lot of really good coaching and scheming, just as Patrick Mahomes does, although we do know that Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. So let's not pretend that, I just said something blasphemous, people. Relax. It's just a very, it was a very, very appropriate comparison, because again, you look at these EPA charts and they're very favorable towards West Coast yards after the catch style like offenses, very efficient, quote unquote. Hence why you have Jimmy Garoppolo and Patrick Mahomes basically overlapping each other when it comes to stuff like that. So to me, I look at the addition of Juju Smith-Schuster and Mike Gesicki, and I already say, okay, that's a positive for the Patriots offense. You add DeAndre Hopkins to the mix. Now you're like, okay. Yeah, I did, Joel. I've actually said it many, many times that Mahomes is a great quarterback, but people only hear the criticism that they don't want to hear, which, sorry, folks, it's legit. I've made some good points, and I've been, I don't know, pretty accurate about Patrick Mahomes. Just people don't like to hear it from me. But anyways, that's beside the point. I'll do that next month when we have nothing else to talk about. As we get close to training camp, I'll start talking about all the things I was right about. But
we won't have enough time for that. I mean,
no. What we won't, what we don't have enough time for is to talk about all the things that I was wrong about, John. That would take quite some time. I mean, hell, let's just go back to my NHL postseason talk and discussion about the Bruins. And I'm still waiting.
You were kind of right, though. You said I think they're only going to lose 4 postseason games. You were right. You just didn't think it was going to happen in one series.
Yeah. I'll take it. I appreciate
I'll
it.
I'll give you a half right on that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't. I think
They
that's
have the same number of playoff losses as the Denver Nuggets, right?
yeah, that's true. Well, I'm still trying to figure out if that is a compliment or not, to be honest with you. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. I'm trying to see the silver lining, but it's like it's just making me sad to think about what a disappointment that was. And look, I mean,
That's still unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, it's 2 months later, and I'm like, I'm not a hockey guy, and the team was ridiculous this season. And I always push back when I know they accumulated the most points and the most wins in the history of the league, and I always tell people, look, I saw the Canadians play in '76, '77. That was a completely different animal. I mean, that
sure,
was like, but I expected them to. I expected them to win the cup. I mean, when you're that good, you should. And then you lose to the 8th seed. I mean, I still almost can't believe it happened.
Yeah, and the worst part is that the things that have transpired since, and there's nothing like. I mean, obviously they traded Taylor Hall away the other day to Chicago, but the things that have happened since have it's ooh. It's looking like it might be a rough off season for this Bruins team. So there's no like, okay, let's regroup, let's get back and go at it again. We might be having to approach this team a lot differently moving forward, depending on how the rest of the offseason unfolds. And tomorrow's going to be kind of a big, not a big day. It's not live or die, depending on what you do on free agency, but we may learn the fate of some pending unrestricted free agents the Bruins have. And according to reports, don't expect to sign any of them. So if you're a Bruins fan, there's going to be some rough times ahead, it feels like, but we will
go to a cookout, drink a lot, and then when you wake up, assess where the team is.
That happens
10 years ago. That
happens when the Bruins are doing well.
That's true too. Yeah, there's a lot of hangovers there.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I remember Tyler Seguin was traded on July 4th.
Yeah, that's true.
A big cookout. Heard the news, and I'm like, whoa! And I had an intern at the time who was supposed to be at the same party with.
Was his name Darren?
Because what was his name? I can't even remember.
Darren.
10 years ago.
It was Darren.
Yeah, Darren. Yes. Yeah. Was it? Maybe it was. But I just remember that he was supposed to be at the same party with Tyler Seguin because this kid was like the same age as Tyler Seguin, and he was like kind of a.
I think I'm the same age as Tyler Seguin. Actually, no, he's a little bit younger than me.
I think he's 92. He was born in 92.
Yeah.
So you're a little older. Yeah. And,
God.
I know you. There aren't many players in the league now older than you.
You know what?
Gone, and that's
I don't want to think about that, to be honest with you, because at 37,
Aaron Rodgers is older than you.
At 37, John Elway looked like he was about ready to fall apart on the football
no kidding,
field.
Didn't he?
So.
Whoa! Speaking of a lot of drinking, there, I think.
Yeah.
With John Elway.
Yeah, 31, Tyler Seguin. So I'm Yeah, I'm well his senior right now. So you know what? we're gonna end it there because right now I'm not feeling too confident. I feel like I'm a past his prime hockey player right now, and that's not good. But anyways, we will obviously be back on Monday, and we'll kind of talk about whatever happens over the next couple days, both free agency in the NHL and NBA. And obviously, if there's any big moves that happen there, we'll break them down for you and all that. But keep an eye out for the Full Press NHL podcast, Full Press Daily podcast, Full Press Fantasy podcast, all that stuff, because we're going to be rocking and rolling from now until, forever. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And quick recommendation, if you want, or if you have some time this weekend, check out the American Gladiators documentary. I'm loving it so far. It's a great dark look at what was a fun Saturday show as a kid I used to watch. So check it out. I believe it's on Netflix is where I'm watching it. So have a great day, everyone. Have a great weekend, and happy July. We'll talk to you soon.